Okay, so I came across this fundraiser, okay, and this fundraiser was shared by Sanjeev Achar, whom most of you know, right? Um, he personally vouched for the source. He said this is his friend's father. So I know there is credibility to this, and of course, on top of that, there are a lot of details and checks mentioned over here. Okay, so let's say one of our friends' father. Okay, he has cancer, right? And that's a stage 4 cancer. Okay. In fact, even before I start this discussion, I need to say this. Okay. This discussion is intended for education and research purposes. Okay. I'm not a qualified medical doctor. I am an engineering doctor. And specifically today, I'll have to play the role of a messenger. Okay. There is something very, very, very interesting happening in the country, in the world. And I wanted to bring awareness at least to my biomedical engineering students. Okay. If not the general population. Okay. So this is not medical advice. Okay. You need to consult appropriate, qualified doctors if you have a medical issue. This is purely for medical and research purposes. And I said I am going to play the role of a messenger because I am not an expert on this. But, right, uh, you know, I made in a very low profile, and then ours is a small gate coaching institute. Given that even if you invite someone to come and give a talk, right, the experts may not have uh, the time to come and discuss that. Okay, so that which we are. I am going to give the primer on not just CAR T cell therapy. I am rather going to give a primer on immuno-oncology. Okay, this is going to be a primer, and this is directed at biomedical undergraduate students. For that reason, okay, we have scheduled about an hour. I have to necessarily make this really, really simple, even at the okay, cost of accuracy and precision. I want to convey the message. Okay, most of you don't know about this. Most of you have only glimpsed through the review paper that I sent. But by the time you leave this meeting, I want you to have a reasonable idea on what is going on. Okay, most of you might be aware of specifically India's successes in the pharma industry, in the vaccine industry, and looks like we are at another, we are at the edge of another breakthrough. This is waiting to happen. And this all science facts, all of that is suggesting that the next big thing is going to be this CAR T cell therapy. This discussion is going to be on what is that CAR T cell therapy. Okay, I'll try to make it as interesting and as accessible and as approachable as possible. So what I have done so far is, notice I shared you this review paper, right? This is open access, so most of you at least can glimpse through this. This is on CAR T cell therapy. Okay. In fact, when I searched in YouTube for CAR T cell therapy, many doctors have put up short videos on what this is and all that, right? And one specific video that I found useful was this video, CAR T cells, okay, beating cancer with the immune system. So there are already many, many, many videos here. If you want to get awareness, you could go get awareness. But I am trying to give, especially if you are totally uninitiated, a broader and a wider primer on this, what this cancer is and what this immunotherapies are, and what possible opportunities, career possibilities are available to you. Okay, so that's the objective of this video. And notice this is all started with this fundraiser. So he seems to be suffering with a very advanced stage of cancer. okay, and looks like they need to raise money for this CAR T cell therapy. Okay, again, so if I have to look at this image, if I have to make a reasonably, no reasonable educated guess, the image of the left looks like a PET scan. Okay, probably some glucose based tracer is added, and wherever there are cancer tissues which like this glucose a lot, those regions are showing up as opaque, and here probably they had some treatment for cancer. Okay, and the picture at the right seems to be an after picture, so this is before. Okay, uh, that is, there is treatment in the left, and then the cancer relapsed probably. Okay, I'll have to guess. Again, this is a PET scan, and this is, this is quite diffused. Okay, and this is like also quite large. Okay, and this mentions this is DLBCL. I suppose this is diffuse large B cell lymphoma. Okay, and what caught my attention on this is this line is a cutting edge but expensive therapy which alone costs 45 lakhs to 60 lakhs, which is, of course, this is beyond most people's means. Okay, they have already managed to arrange some amount of money, and on top of that, okay, they are trying to arrange more, and they are trying to raise some more. Okay, this is in fact, this is the first time I am coming across a treatment that costs so much, that piqued my interest, and this happened about a week back. Okay, and in fact, when I saw this was around couple of 2 days back. This was close to 12, so this is actually pretty fastly kind of reaching its reaching its okay, target, I suppose. Okay, in I suppose 2 or 3 days, this has increased by 4 lakhs. I have right now, there are like 10 students in this class, and then some 100 students watch the YouTube videos for about, let's say, 2-3 minutes, right? Each video they watch it for 2-3 minutes. That's a reality. So I am not in a position to do you know good fundraiser and all that, but is there anything, any value that I can add to the discussion? Okay, so that question in fact led me to this discussion today. Okay, so notice, I did some search. In fact, I have been sitting with this. I have a reasonable background and training to do this kind of work. Okay, interestingly, notice, this is April 2024. Okay, right now we are in March 2025, right? So less than a year back, President of India launches India's first homegrown gene therapy for cancer, developed by IIT Bombay, Tata Memorial Center, and Immuno looks like a startup or a spin-off or a company. Okay, and yeah, so in fact, there seems to be a good reason to celebrate this, because this is potentially the next big, you know, big advances that we could do in healthcare. After pharma, after vaccines, this likely is to be a big success story. Okay, and let's get to some of the details of this. Let's look at this image. Does anyone recognize any of these cells? Do you know, like, have you seen platelets, erythrocytes, macrophages, lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes? Have any of you like can recognize this? I suppose most of you do, right? You have some basic human anatomy, physiology. Yes, yes, right. So these are blood cells, right? So in fact, this is multipotent hematopoietic stem cell and its lineages, right? So one of them remains a stem cell after division, and then they kind of like express themselves in various forms. Very, very, very roughly, we have like two major branches here: the myeloid stem cells and its lineages, the lymphoid stem cells and its lineages. Okay. And so some of these are known players: platelets, right? Erythrocytes, red blood cells, and then many of the rest of the things are all like white blood cells. But again, some of you might know this. A good or a rough, sorry, not necessarily a good, but a very rough way to look at this is the things in the left, the myeloid stem cell lineages. They correspond to our natural immunity. Okay. This is like there is some sign of a pathogen, there is some sign of a damage in the human body, they respond to it. They are not very specific. Okay, they try to like correct the damage, clear the damage, correct the damage, and all that. Okay, in fact, notice even platelets kind of do that. Erythrocytes, wherever there is like too much carbon dioxide, they give out, okay, take oxygen. You are likely to need oxygen, right? So most of the cells in the left belonging to this myeloid stem cell lineage, they have this innate immunological effect, and most of them originate at the bone marrow. Okay, pretty easy picture, right? From something that we are familiar with. Now, we also have this lymphoid stem cells. Perhaps they originate, most of them originate at the bone marrow, but they mature at the lymphatic system, the immune system, the thymus gland and things like that. Okay. And they belong to this, class of immunity referred to as adaptive immunity. While the immunity is like very generic, okay, some pathogen marker, some damage marker, they react to it, they work on it. The things at the left are very, very specific. That is, they know whom they are targeting. Okay. So roughly, again, if I have to give analogies, the one at the left is like, again, simple analogy, police trying to control a crowd. There is a stampede or something like that about to happen. Police is trying to control the crowd. The one on the right is very, very specific. And this is like a classified military activity. Okay. So this is highly specialized, highly specific and all that. So that is one way to look at it. And in fact, so we need this. The question is, so what if there is a problem with any of these cells, right? What if these gods, right? Who will guard the gods? Sort of question arises here. And what if these cells go berserk? In fact, most of the cells are capable of going berserk. That is, they can proliferate, grow uncontrollably, which we refer to as cancer. And the cancer classification is typically based on which cell, right, is proliferating uncontrollably, right? So we have like, if it is like this lymphoid based things, roughly this is, lymphoma. Okay. And then myeloid based cells, roughly this is like blood cancer, leukemia. Okay. And then even within that, there can be acute, chronic, and all that, right? There can be many divisions. So my objective is not to explain that, but just to give you a primer, okay, to get you started with this. So notice, so many cancers are these cells growing uncontrollably. And these are not normal cells. These are actually well-trained army. Okay. So there are natural killer cells. There are T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, plasma cells. So this is actually highly sophisticated cells that are supposed to guard the human body, but sometimes they do go out of control. Okay. Cancer as briefly as possible. And type of cancer depends on type of cell that is going berserk. Now, what happens is this CAR T cells, right, is actually is taking this T lymphocytes and modifying it. Okay. Again, if I have to give a very loose analogy that is very relatable, most of you have seen this Kalki movie. Kalki, some 2088 AD, something like that. Most of you have seen that. Seriously. Okay. Your Kalki, that is Kalki AD movie, you haven't seen. Then, okay. Have you seen Avengers? You most of you know Avengers, I suppose, right? Avengers, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man. Okay, I at least presume you haven't seen like this Indian, Kalki movie, but most of you have seen Avengers movie. Notice. So the way Thor behaves is very different with and without the hammer, with and without the axe, right? Similarly, you can give a very specialized weapon to T cell. T cells, these are immune cells, there to protect it. You give it as additional, okay, additional structure on its, this transmembrane structure, okay. Uh, this is referred to as a CAR structure, chimeric antigen receptors, okay. The moment T cells get this, they get this ability to specifically target cancer cells. The reason cancer cells have some signature, okay, if not signature, most of the cancer cells have some special protein markers, okay. And what this does is, this is capable of recognizing those markers in cancerous cells and let's say kill those cancerous cells. Once they recognize it, they are capable of killing those cancerous cells. Okay, this is referred to as apoptosis, cell death. Okay. Now, what makes this scenario very interesting is you have, okay, if any of you have seen this Kalki AD movie, right? Now, Prabhas is behaving one way before that Astra comes to his hand. He's a totally different person. He remembers his past, right? Or he behaves very, very differently, very powerful the moment he gets the Astra. In a way, this CAR structure is like that. And the moment the T cells, we engineer these CAR structures, to be on T cells, okay? They get this very, very special cancer killing ability. Interestingly, the cancer cells are also immune cells. Okay, for example, in the list that I showed here, B lymphocytes, B cell, these are also immune cells. And so this is like one army person fighting against another army person, right? One thing that is, at least I didn't explicitly come across in many of the other introductory videos that I saw is, there are many inhibitory, responses. It's not that easy to go, let's say again for analogy purposes, to go slap a officer. The consequences are very dire, right? It's not that easy. So there are many inhibitions and checkpoints. So even a T cell cannot just like that go start attacking, let's say, a B cell. But in this case, right, notice there are various generations of CAR T cells mentioned, right? So in the initial generations, the first generations, they are given the ability to recognize a typical cancer cell, okay, with high degree of sensitivity, specificity, okay. With increasing generations, what they do is, so there are many inhibitory checkpoints. There are multiple checks that need to be done typically, but these higher generational CAR T cells are given the license to overwrite those inhibitory signals. That is where they get this real ability even go attack another immune cell like a B lymphocyte. Okay, so which is where you have this, there is this stimulatory domain, co-stimulatory domain, and all of that, right? If I were to expand this picture, some of you would have seen this. So these are licenses to turn off. Okay, notice first generation, second generation, there is a co-stimulatory domain 1, co-stimulatory domain 2. These are essentially licensed to turn off and deal with some of the inhibitory responses, the other immune cells. Okay, James Bond Moody, this is like licensed to kill, right? So why does it cost so much? Of course, the involved technology is pretty sophisticated. One is, so patient typically has a RR, ball, right? This is like a, this is a refractory or relapsed cancer that shows up again after treatment. In fact, probably, I made a guess looking at those pictures initially, right? It has returned back, right? Yeah. Yeah, we think Thanos is dead at the beginning of the movie. Only another version of Thanos has returned back. Something like that. This cancer, some of the aggressive forms, specifically relapse, come back again, right? What they do is, so they need to get this blood cells, okay, which is referred to as PBMCs. Typically, most of the blood cells, they do this by a process called apheresis. This is where, you take the blood, only like filter out the blood cells, and then you need to send it to a lab where even among all the blood cells, you need to somehow separate the T cells. Okay. The T cells, now we have to give the ability to, we have to give this Astra or this CAR receptors to T cells, right? The way they do it is, they need to engineer a virus, a viral vector with the ability to produce those CAR receptors, right? And they put those viruses in these T cells, okay? And the viruses will go modify the T cell genetics so that the T cell starts making the CAR structures, okay? So there is, this retroviruses, viral vectors, you need to first program these genes, and then you have to put them in a virus. Those viruses have to go make changes in the T cells so that T cells can produce this, get these structures. And that they have to typically 1 or 2 doesn't suffice. You have to increase their count, right? There are quality checks and all that. And you need to do this typically relatively fast, okay? Uh, Roughly, this takes at least a reference that I sent you says roughly this takes about 9 to 14 days, this process, for this to get back to the person. And now with changes in manufacturing and all that, now they could kind of get it to a day, right? So this gets back to the person. Now, once this is injected, okay, now this T cells will go, whatever these receptors will find as problematic, they are referred to as antigens. Okay, CD19 or something like that. Most of the B cells, okay, is cancerous B cells is highly expressed. So they go target them and they induce death in those cells. In fact, looks like this CAR T cell research started in 1996. They gave it a person. I suppose his name is Wilson. he almost, there has been very, very, very good results. And after 20 years or something like that, that person is cancer free. Okay. And a lot of research has gone into research and development has gone into this. Okay. So this is core T cell therapy. Very briefly, this process is very costly, but interestingly, even in the paper that I sent you, right? No, the CD19 is the target they are looking for. Typically expressed by cancer cells. Is it only cancer cells? No. Okay. Perhaps B cells express it, and if there is like a B cell cancer, B cell lymphoma, typically you need to target that. Notice this is 400, 475,000, roughly $500,000. So this is challenging Mr. Beast, right? So the money is of that order, $500,000. Perhaps he went to the next level, but $500,000 roughly translates to, this is 5 crores, 4 to 5 crores Indian rupees. Okay. What we have managed to do again is that to bring down the cost from roughly 4 5 crores to 40 50 lakhs, right? That was what is that the cost that initially saw. You have done a 10x reduction in price. Still, it's costly. Okay, which is the reason to have this discussion. But that's a very, very, very great strike. Okay, done in India. I already showed you some places where this is being done, right? Notice. So lymphoblastic leukemia, and then myeloid leukemia, non-Hodgkin B cell lymphoma. So these are, the different types of cancers are based on which cell is going, uncontrollably, right? Growing uncontrollably, multiple myeloma and all that. Okay, now there are problems here. Let's look at a full size image. What? This is a full size image. Let's look at a one second. Let's look at a high resolution image. Okay, so high resolution is like bigger, larger than full size. So notice unit economics in fully scale production model. So there are many, many details given in this oral abstract. Okay, one of them being like the cost. So roughly, we are talking about $1,000 is roughly 1 lakh. Okay, 87,000, 90,000 based on USD INR value, but roughly 1,000 USDs is 1 lakhs roughly. So notice with in a lab setting, initial R&D setting, they are able to do, if they are producing this, manufacturing this CAR T cell therapy for 50 patients per year, the cost is roughly 20 lakhs. Okay, and increase in economies of scale, right? If they scale up the production, they can bring down the cost many places. They can roughly get to, let's say, 10 to 15 lakhs. Okay. In fact, if you put, there are other overheads and all that, roughly, I suppose this is like 50 lakhs within, economies of scale. This roughly translates to 25 lakhs per patient. With the current technology, with deluxe improvements in manufacturing efficiencies and all of that. Okay, that is one thing. But I also want to show you, given this primer, I also want to show you one more interesting thing. And that so this is playing chess against cancer. Revolution, Cancer International, Molecular Tumor Board. Okay, this is him. See, That is to highlight, I'm not all that familiar with this, but I found some reasonable and interesting data here in this source. And that happens to be from a bank, Wells Fargo. Okay, so this is Insider's Guide to Translation, publicly available free downloads. Yeah, this one. So, adoptive cellular therapy, immuno-oncology landscape. Right? We have CAR T, autologous CAR T, allogenic CAR T. Okay, we have few others. So, this is general adoptive cellular therapy, immuno-oncology. That is immuno-oncology. Okay, I gave you sufficient intro, right? Landscape. And this is made by Wells Fargo Investment Banking. Okay, at least the logo is there, and then we have sources. Document may be copied and used as is. Okay, for most up-to-date version, contact Matthew Smith and Brendan Nagel. Okay, so I'm looking at the version that right now that is there in the website. We'll go through this list because the primer only gets complete. Okay, if you at least start making sense out of this figure over here. Okay, but a first exercise. So roughly different types of therapies are radially arranged. Okay, I suppose the resolution is, yeah, I could see it in my phone. Okay, again, in the theta angle, right? Different angles correspond to different territories of different therapies. We have autologous CAR T, for example, and I suppose the border is sufficiently visible, right? There is sufficient resolution to see the border is over here to here. Okay, I could see that in my phone, so I presume this is visible. Okay, so this is all this belongs to autologous CAR T. Okay, and this is allogenic CAR T, allogenic TCR, and all that. So we'll finish a primer with looking at what this map is. Okay, making sense of this map. Because okay, now this is already exploding. Now India started to put a point in this map. Actually, I couldn't find the specific example I showed you, but now the recent version is supposed to have. Hey, the idea is, see, along the theta direction, we have different therapies. Okay, autologous CAR T and allogenic CAR T. After 5-10 minutes, we want to at least like interpret what these terms are. Okay, by then we'll finish the primer. But before I do that, and radially, if you go inwards, world of candidates, and then candidates that are in uh, uh, in phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials, and then candidates that are in phase 3 clinical trials. Okay, that is in the pivotal layer. Then file is probably even they cleared the phase 3 clinical trial. Now they are waiting for approval. Okay, once they get approval, they are a product. Okay, they are being marketed. So these are the different layers here. There is something peculiar in this chart. Peculiar in this about something kind of stands out. Something is very different. Can you spot it? This is showing many adaptive cellular therapies. Something is very distinct. Something clearly sort of stands out. Are there any clear winners of sorts here? So radially,
Autologous CAR T are the ones that are marketed up till now.
great. So notice, so autologous is from the same person. You take the person's blood, do the CAR T engineering, manufacturing that we saw, and put it into the person. Now, allogenic is like within species, not the same person. You take it from a person and then you put it in a different person. That is allogenic. So autologous and allogenic. What has actually cleared all these rounds of clinical trials is this. Majority of them, in fact, most of them are this autologous CAR T candidates from autologous CAR T that are being marketed, that are currently solutions. So rest of them Okay, some of them more in the late, stage 3 clinical trials and all that, waiting to be filed. There are few candidates, but again, the world of autologous CAR T so far has been very, very, very successful. Okay. In fact, if you go, there are some shortcomings, there are some complications, CRS, and then, ICANS and all that, which is there in the review paper that I sent. But, you know, given the risk versus benefits, right, analysis, many of them are actually product today. Treatments are available. That's one thing. And so autologous is the same person's T cells. Allogenic is, say, what if we get it from a different person or, that person. We have TCR, multiple antigen targets, some of these things. Okay, notice. Why just CAR T cells? I showed you the list of, hematopoietic cell lineages, right? Why not do it with myeloid cells? Why not do it with natural killer cells? Right? CAR natural killer cells. Again, the distinction is, uh, you know, there is also, for example, CR, TCR. This is, let's say, T cell receptor therapy. They are going to target specific signature protein structures, right? It so happens that T cells need additional protein structure called MCH. Okay. First of all, CAR T cells are engineered to not need it. On top of that, they are also put some co-stimulatory domains. So notice, so many of these candidates or whatever could possibly get cancerous can possibly get therapeutic. Again, the initial the cell lineage that I showed you, the natural killer cells over here, the B cells, T cells, natural killer cells, the different cells, immune cells that I showed you, not just the T cells, even the other cells are being researched and are being engineered to therapy for cancer. That is one thing, and this world is quite huge. Okay, so far autologous CAR T has shown very, very promising results. The major shortcoming being the cost. Okay, but if you're interested, this is somewhat aligned with biochemistry, bioengineering, biotechnology, and biochemistry. But if you're interested in wet labs, if you go to any old IIT, you are likely to have the infrastructure and resources to learn and work on this. This therapy is literally exploding. So as time progresses, you're likely to find more and more opportunities, even in India. Okay, that is one thing that I wanted to show you. Okay, and the last thing that I want to do is the reason to discuss this CAR T cell therapy is it's actually very hard to come across a thing that works. Okay, again, works to what extent, what are the complications, that's a question, but at least it is at a stage where it has cleared many, many checks and trials, right? It's very hard to come across this is something that I would consider this as an example of excellence in bioengineering, specifically, in bioengineering therapy, excellence in cancer cure. Okay, but such this is highly sensitive and highly specific engineered. Okay, this is cutting edge engineering. But one of the questions that that I still have is from the prevention side, our knowledge, it's not nowhere close to being so specific or sensitive. Okay, we haven't seen excellence from the prevention side, unfortunately. Notice, if you actually look at any epidemiology and cancer, roughly about 15%, 10 to 15% would be genetic. 85% is due to environmental factors. Okay, is there any risk image here. Okay, let's go here. Okay. Epidemiology of cancer. Notice, yeah, this preventable causes of cancer. At least, okay, this is in the US. Tobacco is 32%, right? Smoking, lung cancer, diet, colon cancer, and all that, right? Due cancer due to diet, 30%. Obesity, there is diabetes and all that. Comorbidity, things are usually worse. Obesity, this, again, this is major chunk. And of course, there are some infections that also can cause cancer. There, pollution is actually a very, very small chunk. Alcohol is a preventable cause. Then radiation is there, skin cancer. If you don't wear sunscreen and all that, there is radiation. Then occupational, some people are in, uh, unfortunately in carcinogenic workplaces. So we have this occupational causes. Pollution is a very, very, very small subset. Unfortunately, you know, in India, we have pollution will easily come to the top, if not for tobacco, right? You know, uh, even there are news articles and reports saying that everybody is no non-smokers. There is so much pollution, let's say in Delhi, that everybody is a smoker, right? So for us, pollution and all that would roughly be a major cause if you have to look at, let's say, data from India. But the thing is, roughly, if I have to pick some statistics quickly, about 75-80%, at least in the say United States, are potentially due to modifiable risk factors. We are lacking us while all the developments are much required in the cure side. Okay, this is giving a hope to a lot of people. I'm hoping to at least witness excellence in the prevention side. Okay, so understanding early diagnosis of cancer, most of you might be aware of, but can we really, what are some ways that really work on bringing down the risk, cancer risk factors, or all this reduces preventable causes of cancer, right? That is a question that needs to be answered in a practical way. Answers are there, but are they practical? They being implemented, followed, executed? That's a very different story, right? But there can be easily a 10x improvement if only we have excellence, R&D, and all that similar to this in the prevention side. A lot of work going on, but you know something is missing. Okay, so anyway, so this is sort of a primer. In fact, if there are one or two questions, we can discuss that. If you quickly go Google, you can easily find what these abbreviations are. Okay, this is just T cell receptor therapy. So there is a difference between having an MCH or not having an MCH molecule, that you could go see. And then CTL, cytotoxic T lymphocytes. Okay, so these are T cells plus additional protein domain, I suppose CD8 or something like that. Then TAL is tumor infiltrating lymphocytes. Then marrow infiltrating lymphocytes, that is MIL. T or UC is slightly different. This is, I suppose, fusion constructs. Okay, this is somewhat there's a hybrid version between CAR T and TCR. Okay, TCRT. So a hybrid of those two. Okay, and then TCR is just T cell receptors. There is a something needs MCH molecules, T cells. If you remove that requirement, that is CAR T. Okay, should MCH be present in the label or not? That's a question. Okay, that's the difference between TCR and CAR T. Rest of the things, and in fact, the initial thing that I showed you, the cell line I showed you, can macrophages be engineered? Right? Yes, there is actually R&D going on over there. Pretty much, name a cell that I showed. Can it be engineered? Yes. Okay, but which has been most promising? Which has been most effective? So far, it has been CAR T. Okay, that is the case. At least. Okay, so looks like this was useful for many of you. Great. And any other pending questions? We're already slightly over time. If this useful, we'll certainly continue. I don't know if I can find another topic like CAR-T, but I'll certainly find interesting, useful topics for you that you need to know at this stage. And if not, we can always, go do this breathing sessions. Okay. So right now, I think this is a good place to stop. Okay. Then have a good one. I'll see you again, this weekend. And tomorrow there will be a minor quiz session. Okay. Have a good one. Take care. Bye. So the idea of these sessions is to do something that is real world, perhaps outside of GATE syllabus. We want to discuss some current affairs, biomedical technology, you know, very interesting things going on and research and healthcare research and development and all that. Right. In fact, I think this will be the first session, right? To do it. I do have planned the sort of course on physiology of breathing. Okay. If we don't find a topic, we'll always, head back to the breathing topic, head back to that course, right? But this week I found something very, very interesting. Okay. And I wanted to discuss it today. Okay, great. So the quick poll, what I'm quickly hearing is minority already knew about CAR T cell therapy. And then at least those who voted, majority has glimpsed through the paper. Okay, great.